What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. Odell Beckham Jr. was signed yesterday morning, and on today's video, I want to answer some of your questions on the latest Dolphins rumors after OBJ signs. A lot of these questions have to do with OBJ's impact, what Miami does from here on forward, what other positions of need, and other free agency rumors surrounding the Dolphins. Before we do, though, make sure you do follow me on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. I'm trying to grow my brand and get interacting with you guys more on Dolphins Twitter. So follow me over there at Nic_Rohloff. Link is in the chat and description of today's video. Appreciate everyone who's already followed me, but I want to create more of a Dolphins community over on Twitter. All right, first question coming in from TerryMack surrounding the Miami Dolphins roster. Should the Dolphins sign another offensive lineman? Kind of concerned about that group right now. I would agree. The Dolphins ended up obviously signing Odell Beckham Jr. on Friday, but if you watched our free agent targets video just earlier this week, you would have known that I was more skeptical towards the offensive line and honestly the interior defensive line than I was at the wide receiver position. You had Tyreek Hill, you had Jalen Waddle. Yes, wide receiver 3 was a little bit of a concern because you have Braxton Berrios as that guy, but that really isn't a needle mover, and you were going to really have to rely on Malik Washington, the rookie you drafted in the 6th round from Virginia. OBJ fills that role, but yes, the interior offensive line is something that is absolutely needed. You lost Robert Hunt in free agency. Robert Jones is the slated replacement. You have Isaiah Wynn as your left guard and Aaron Brewer at center. But there are a couple offensive linemen out there that I would like to add to this team. Now, there's 2 names in particular that I want to bring up. One being Dalton Risner and one being Greg Van Roten. I think those 2 are probably your top options. I know a lot of Dolphins fans on Twitter, as I've seen, wanting Dalton Risner, which I get. He's been a 5-year player. He's a veteran. He was a day 2 pick, I believe, for the Denver Broncos, and Risner was a really good left guard for them at the beginning of his career. He did not re-sign with Denver last year and signed late in the offseason. I think actually might have been early parts of the season with the Minnesota Vikings, and he played some solid ball for Minnesota last season. Graded it out okay at PFF, but if you look at the career of Risner in comparison to Van Roten, Risner's career is better. But Van Roten had a better 2023, and I think he's a better fit. Why, you ask? Well, Dalton Risner has played only one position his entire career in the National Football League. That would be left guard. He's been consistent at that spot. Greg Van Roten's a little bit more versatile on the offensive line. He's played all over the line in the NFL, but last season for the Raiders, he played particularly right guard, which is the biggest spot and glaring hole on this Dolphins offensive line currently. I like the bookends of Armstead and Austin Jackson. You have a couple good swing tackles with the rookie Patrick Paul and Kendall Lamb, but now it's time to ensure and beef up that interior, and I think that would be Risner or Van Roten. Van Roten graded out pretty solid with the Raiders last year, posting a couple PFF grades above 70, which was very good. Was healthy for most of the year as well. I think Van Roten is a guy that I would sign over Risner just because of his familiarity with right guard. Not saying that Risner couldn't switch over from left guard to that right spot, but I think it would be more easy for Van Roten, bring him in to compete with Robert Jones, had a brain fart, and then we can move forward in that competition during August and early parts of September to figure out who's that starting right guard come week 1 in the NFL. Let me ask you guys this, though. Who do you want the Dolphins to sign? And should the Dolphins sign an offensive line? I think that's a better question here. Should the Dolphins sign an offensive lineman? Type Y for yes, type N for no. All right, question number 2 coming in from RS33. How much playing time will Odell Beckham Jr. get on the Dolphins? I think that's an interesting question. And after signing OBJ, I think that's the biggest question. But he is the wide receiver 3 on this team. Do not get it twisted. That is what his role is going to be. And I don't think you guys have any inclination or belief that OBJ is going to get more playing time over Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. You have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. You just do. And it's awesome to have, right? And as you try to analyze Tua and see if he can be your franchise guy, which I believe he is a franchise quarterback. It's just going to be tough to see what his contract extension is going to be, if he gets one this offseason or Miami waits till next year. We'll see what they end up doing. But either way, that's a different conversation for a different day. Odell Beckham Jr.'s playing time. Depends on what Mike McDaniel wants to do, right? Like, you brought in Jonnu Smith. I know he likes to use Alec Ingold. There's a very wide variety of packages that Miami likes to employ with their offense. But when they do go to a wide receiver 3 set, I expect OBJ to be out there 90% of the time they go to wide receiver 3 sets, because he can play outside as an X wide receiver. He can play the slot. He can play the Z. He can do it all. And that's the number one thing that I love about this wide receiver room, if I'm going to be honest, is the versatility. And I'm a versatility kind of guy. Like, if you can play all over the field in life, really, if you could play it in basketball, football, whatever the situation is, if you can do multiple things, I'm going to be a big fan of yours. And Waddle, Hill, and OBJ can all line up on different spots of the field and give the opposing defenses troubles. It's not like you're going to have one guy lining up on the left boundary closest to the hash mark, or that will not be a concern here. You can play it all over. So that's what I love about this trio. And I do think you have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. The only one that could come close to that off the top of my head is maybe Cincinnati if they re-sign Tyler Boyd. But I mean, I'm still taking Miami's big 3 over any big 3 in the NFL. Before we move on to some other questions asked by Dolphins fans, we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app on the market. No Dolphins football as of right now, just about 4 or 5 months away until the preseason, but you can still get in on the action on a daily basis with the MLB, with the the MLB, the NHL, the NBA, as those 2 playoffs continue throughout the month of May into June. Get started today. Win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct entries. You can have an entry that has one MLB player, NHL, NBA. You could also go to League of Legends. I also think there's slap boxing on there. You can get whatever you want, whatever sport event you want. They have it. Get started today. Pick more, pick less. It's that simple. It's that easy. So use code CLNS when you download the app at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get that first deposit match up to $100. All right, next question coming in from NicholasDucharme. Hopefully I said that name right. He asked, why did the Dolphins GM Chris Grier sign Odell Beckham Jr. over an offensive lineman? I think that's a great question as well. And listen, I don't have sources inside the Dolphins front office and have a pipeline to Chris Grier's decision-making, but I feel like they've wanted OBJ for a while, right? You know, if you follow the channel, if you follow the Dolphins, that they've been linked to OBJ for 2 months now. And we showed the quote earlier on in the week as well. Mike McDaniel, Dolphins head coach, spoke at the NFL owners meeting after free agency and a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before the NFL draft, that they had an outstanding offer to OBJ. And that deal was obviously a 1-year, $8.25 million deal. That was max. It's $3 million base with over $5 million in incentives. And that's a steal. $3 million base for OBJ is crazy. And to me, this isn't signing OBJ over an offensive lineman. I think there's 2 ways you can look at this. One, I think they always wanted Odell Beckham to be the wide receiver 3 on this Dolphins team. And the opportunity finally presented itself where Chris Grier felt comfortable with the money. OBJ was like, okay, I'll take this deal. And that's how it got done. I don't think this is them saying we prioritize wide receiver 3 over an offensive lineman. I think it's them saying the value is too good on OBJ and the caliber of player he is to pass up at this point in time. And it's not like the Dolphins are going to be done making moves, which is why I wanted to get to point number 2. Is they are going to sign an offensive lineman. There is no way that they can be a serious RAN organization and not sign an offensive lineman heading into training camp in August. This is no way. So to me, they're waiting post-June 1st. $18 million are coming off the books for Miami with the post-June 1st cut of Xavier Howard. You'll get $18 million in cap space, and there you will be able to sign an offensive lineman. But also, I think you have to remember this as well. Just like Miami is post-June 1st cut Xavier Howard, I mean, they did it, but they designated for the future, which you're allowed to do twice. A lot of other teams won't do that. So they will just cut people straight up post June 1st to save them some money. So what does that mean? Well, that means there's going to be a new crop of free agents joining the unemployed, if you will, after the June 1st day, which means there might be better offensive linemen out there potentially that get cut. And I'm not saying it's guaranteed that there's going to be more offensive linemen, but there is a higher chance of better O-linemen coming available after June 1st. There's already the Greg Van Rotens and Dalton Risners of the world that we brought up, but maybe there's someone else that gets cut that we weren't expecting, and Chris Grier can now use that cap space opened up from Xavier Howard to go sign one of them. So to me, I just think the value of OBJ was so good that they struck now, and they were fine pushing off the O-lineman and waiting post-June 1st. All right, last question of the video coming in from Stuart here, another OBJ Dolphins question. Is the signing of Odell Beckham Jr. a wasted roster spot on the Dolphins roster? Sign Risner or Greg Van Roten? Well, we already talked about Roten and Risner, so we won't really bring that up again here to round out today's video, but the OBJ wasted roster spot. No, and I get, and I've read some of the comments, and some of the people on YouTube don't want OBJ and didn't want Odell Beckham Jr. because they thought he was a diva, a locker room cancer. I think I might have been on your side early in his career, but I think at this point of his life in NFL career, he has become much more mature. There wasn't that many issues last year in Baltimore. I don't really think there was one really coming to mind unless I'm just spacing. I just don't think he liked Cleveland. Obviously, the New York thing was odd at times, but I don't think he liked Cleveland, man. And then when he went to the Rams in LA, he was a good teammate. He was dominating out there with Cooper Kupp. He was on his way to potentially winning Super Bowl MVP before he tore his ACL against the Bengals. And I just don't know how you can say he's a bad teammate because we aren't in the locker room. And when you see Jalen Ramsey, who was teammates with OBJ in Los Angeles when they won the Super Bowl, tweeted out after, it's like, remember the last time, and it was a picture of him and Ramsey in the Super Bowl. I don't buy the stuff that Odell Beckham Jr. is a horrible teammate. And it's not a wasted roster depth chart, because if you can seriously try to tell me that you would rather have Braxton Berrios, Eric, River Craycraft, or Malik Washington, I love him, but you would try to tell me that any of those four guys are a better wide receiver than Odell Beckham Jr., I'm sorry to be blatantly calling you out here, but if you do try to tell me that, you're just flat out wrong. I get OBJ's 31 and at the tail end of his career, but he still put up 500-plus yards last year with 3 touchdowns. In the last 8 games he played with Los Angeles in 2021, he had 300 yards and change with 5 touchdowns. So this is someone who can really provide you with a lot of productivity at that wide receiver 3 position. You're not asking him to go dominate and lead the charge of your wide receiver room. He can be the tail end guy behind Hill and Waddle. To me, that's very, very ideal, and that is not wasting a roster spot whatsoever, because you have now created the most dangerous wide receiver trio in the NFL. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. If you haven't already, make sure you join the channel and subscribe. We are going to break down everything surrounding the Miami Dolphins this entire offseason, and we'll be live throughout the offseason as well on weekly live shows. And then once August rolls around, preseason, NFL regular season, September, we'll have it all. So hit that sub button and join us. We'll see you on the next video. Go Fins.